Let's talk to Chris from Texas. Wants to talk about cognitive symmetry. Chris, you are live on Talk Heathen. Tell us more about your position.
Oh, all right. This was prompted by Dr. Ben's experience with biology, and I'm autistic, and I try to resolve the differences between the non-autistic and autistic communities. One of the things that I settled on is the ability for groups of people to come to acquire a symmetry amongst themselves. And, they call that neurotification. Well, I think that actually descends further into our creature, down to our physiology and down to our neurology. Our neurology, and probably eukaryotic cells, learn from their environment what works, and then predicts that memory that they learn from predicts a response, predictive memory. And I think part of what we see in like the religious and non-religious experiences is that portions of the people's neurology settles on a region of the brain that is satisfied with what comes from other people. I call that exogenous symmetry, where you are symmetrical in a group. The autistics tend to be endogenous. They establish their own internal symmetry. And so I was wondering if you could talk about maybe the lives of nerves or cells and how they try to conduct their existence by just getting signals from around them and then learning to respond. Because I think that may have that's a perspective I want to hear other people on.
So I think there's a lot of blurring here between psychology and neurology. I think maybe there's too much intention given to the cells themselves, because really when we're talking about neurons and what they're doing, like they're literally just sending electrical signals and relying on electrolyte movements across a membrane. So as far as cells trying to do anything, I don't think the cells are really trying to do anything. It's just the mechanisms happen to work, and over time they've gotten more and more efficient. And so as far as bridging this gap now between, you have this physiologic property of nerve conduction and now jumping over to how we have consciousness and all that stuff, I don't really have much to weigh in on that particular piece because I'm not a psychologist. Pretty much I'm limited to discussing the specific mechanism within the neurons. And even then I'm not a neurologist. So I can do my best, but this maybe is bridging more into psychology than physiology.
Just your observations. This is a nascent idea of mine that I'm filling in. I have some other perspectives about the neurons. If you will let me talk about it, I will.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Well, when I have a physics background, and one of the things that to realize is when you have the nerves operating, they are moving charge around. There's a charge transfer. When the charge moves, It creates a pulse. And I think the structure of a neuron has two roles, or three roles. It does conduction, it does detection, and it does amplification. So the neurons have the ability to communicate to other neurons around them without the need of a neurotransmitter connection. They can get an induced charge, and they can also amplify that through the biochemistry. And so I think what this means is, instead of being a single line wire conduction, this is a field that the neurons are in. And the field is very small and doesn't transmit very far, but the density of the neural tissue puts a lot active. I think that can contribute to more components becoming active for a particular experience. That's just my conjecture, and I'm digging around in that. So,
I mean, yes, it's possible to recruit other neurons, but again, like the issue we're having here is like all of that is going to like anything that is going to relate to memory or reward processing, all that, like that's going to originate like within certain parts of the brain, right? And so you have that initial transmission. You have that, and like the initial transmission has an origin, and like that's kind of the important factor. Yes, you can stimulate neurons to propagate a signal. However, if you're just doing that, that doesn't mean that you're going to get all these other effects with it. Like, and sure, there could be a field where you're recruiting other neurons around it, but if there isn't the original signal and the original instructions, it's not really going to do much. And because I mean, we think about this too, because you have neurons that are acting within the brain, but you also have neurons that like very similar neurons that act within like the spinal cord, within peripheral nerves. So like the neurons themselves like aren't like, I mean, they're super cool, but the neurons themselves aren't anything crazy special with regard to like consciousness, like because we're having the consciousness originate from the brain specifically. So but neurons are present in plenty of tissues that do not have consciousness. So like I want to be careful to not go so far into the weeds of things that like aren't really substantiated. And I don't know much about this specific thing, but maybe it's worth looking into some publications, or if you have an idea, like consider like even publishing on your own or getting with a university and trying to publish. But I think it's important not to speculate too far into something, especially before we have proper evidence of it.
You're right. I understand that, but I want to back up. I just went a little too deep into neurons, but it's the behavior of neural tissue to relearn things. Does it make a difference at what scale? It can be, regulation of internal blood pressure, organizations through signaling, but it gets a signal, it makes an adjustment or releases a signal that is anticipated to help, like blood pressure regulation. That's a parasympathetic.
Yes, we have feedback mechanisms. I apologize. I'm failing to see how this connects to the kind of the point of the show and with like religion and all that.
You have the same underlying systems, and you just keep scaling up into the same processes until you get into a cognitive state, and then the cognitive state learns a particular.
Right. So you're essentially describing like how we get to consciousness and learning and memory and stuff. I think maybe we need to get out of the minutia of the mechanism of neurons, because as fascinating as that can be for kind of individual learning, I think we're losing the audience a bit there and losing the conversation a bit. So
okay, it's fine. I just tried.
Let's stick to. Yeah, no. Is there anything else you want to kind of discuss about, kind of about the topic of the show?
No. Well, this ultimately, I was going to scale up to spirituality and non-spirituality and choices in life. That's what I called cognitive symmetry. But maybe I need to develop. I'll keep developing. If I was just sampling you since you were available, so I'm good to go.
I think
anything?
Yeah, I think the difficulty is here that as Ben has said, and this is right up my alley. I was kind of a little bit, I felt left out and a little bit hurt that this was directed at Ben, because no, I'm kidding. This is right up my alley. This really, really is right up my alley. My background is in philosophy. Consciousness is a particular subject of mine that I really, really, enjoy delving into, and I've got a very, very strong interest in psychology and neuroscience as well. So this is right up my alley. I do agree with Ben that it's kind of crosses a few fields, this, and your question, although or your idea, it's a good idea, but I think it crosses too many fields to be kind of discussed in depth, especially on a call that's 10, 15 minutes long. Mm-hmm. And I do think you need to kind of go away and write your thoughts down and have them assessed in the appropriate fields. However, having said that, I'm very interested in the subject. You know, I've got an autistic son, so I'm very interested in this subject as well from the point of view of autism. If I may, I would like to give you two helpful suggestions of books that might help you gather your thoughts on this. One is about how consciousness, and this is written by a neuroscientist, and it is how consciousness actually forms. And this is an introductory level book that he specifically wrote to simplify some of the ideas he's put forward in his more kind of academic books, because a lot of people who were reading them were really interested in the ideas but weren't quite understanding it. So it's a guy called Antonio Damasio, and the book is called Feeling and Knowing. And as I said, it's specifically written as an umbrella introduction into how consciousness actually comes from the physical brain and how it works from there. I think would be really, really helpful to kind of go and have a look at, to get the underlying thing of consciousness. Another one is looking at no specific work, but the kind of go and listen to the works of a neuroscientist called Dr. Dean Burnett, who specializes, is a science communicator again. So his communication is very simple. He doesn't overcomplicate things, but he specifically works professionally in the field of autism and other kind of I don't know how to phrase this, non-normative brain states, shall we say, that people have. So that's his actual professional work, and he is a scientific communicator. He works for the BBC, does work for the BBC. He's written for the New York Times. He's very, very good communicator. He's written several books on neurology and neuroscience. And as I say, his professional work, it does deal with autism specifically. Go and have a look at those two authors. It might help you gather your thoughts into a cohesive framework that you can actually put together in a simplified way and present to somebody in those fields that can understand you. And I think that would be the best next step for you.
All right.
But thank you for the call. For me, this has been a great call, especially just listening to you and Ben Natter away. So yeah, right up my street. As was the first call. It's my birthday week. All the stars have aligned and brought me the calls that I am really, really interested in. And fuck everybody else. I don't care about them. But no, seriously, thank you very much for that call, Chris. I very much appreciate it. And Ben, anything else?
Yeah, I mean, nobody wants to call me about the kidneys, and I'm kind of offended now because Richard gets everything that he wants. But I don't think there's anyone out there claiming that the kidneys prove God, although there might be. So if people think the kidneys prove God, I want to hear from you. But yeah, no, I think that's it from me. Thank you, Chris, for your call.
All right. Bye-bye, guys.
Take care.